When we lived in southern Utah, every trip east that we took us through Zion Canyon, Zion National Park, or Zion as you might know it. And it was a perfect start and finish to about every motorcycle trip we ever made. So I want to talk about that a little bit today, but first I want to get into the box, into the first layer of the box, at least the first layer having to do with shelter. So that's what we're going to talk about today on Utah ADV. There are about as many ways to pack a dual sport motorcycle as there are dual sport motorcycles, anywhere from hard-sided panniers to soft-sided luggage and a range of different products in between there. I don't do a whole lot of technical writing. If I did, I wouldn't be using hard-sided panniers because I have cranked my leg on this a number of times to let me know that it's not going to budge before my leg breaks. So if I were doing something more technical, I would be opting for the soft-sided luggage as well. But one of the things that I've seen with a lot of riders who are using that type of packing system is that they're also using a dry bag within the packing system just to make sure that they're keeping things weatherproofed and dry that way. And that's what I guess I appreciate more about these panniers, is that they're totally waterproof and relatively indestructible. So when I open it up and have to get into something, I don't have to go through layers or dry bags to get what I want. Everything's right there. And the way I pack this is that it's kind of on a first in, last out basis. So when I arrive at camp, the very first layer, the top layer on this, is my ground cover and my tent. And the ground cover I'm using is nothing fancy. It's not one of those expensive footprints. It's just a 4x8 or 4x6 tarp that I'm using to throw down on the ground that gives me an adequate footprint for my tent. The tent that I'm using is an ALPS Mountaineering Lynx 2. It's a backpacking tent. It's nice and light. I think it comes in at about 3.5 pounds. But it has enough room for me. A two-man tent has enough room for me to go through and keep my panniers or gear or room to change inside the tent. I had a Lynx 1, which my daughter now uses, and both of these tents have a nice fly that come over the top of them that expand that footprint. And so I can keep my panniers out there as well. I just like to have a little bit more room. Being the size that I am, a little bit more room goes a long way. What I really like about this tent is the fact that it has a great ventilation system. It has a little Velcro stanchion that fits into the top and creates a flap opening so air circulates through the top of the tent. And I like that a lot. It's enough to go through and capture the warm air that your body heat is generating inside the tent, but at the same time, it's enough to go through and kind of circulate that out and about as well. I'm a hot sleeper as it is, and so I like it kind of cool inside there. It has a door on both sides. It has a wash tub footprint there, so any kind of ground moisture or water that might be running by has to raise up about 4 or 5 inches in order for it to start inundating the tent material, which is also waterproof. And it's got a great fly on this, like I talked about a little bit earlier, that goes through and widens the footprint so I can keep my boots underneath that fly that I can also go through and secure and zip up and stay out of the weather with that. So great little tent, and combined with, always use a ground cover, some type of a footprint that way underneath your tent, because it's going to go through and save the investment that you have in this, and also help keep it dry if my footprint gets wet. It's a lot easier to dry off because it's just made out of this vinyl that way, and then I can pack it up and not worry about it molding or anything that way. Whereas the tent, if it gets wet, I'm going to spend a lot of time waiting for it to dry out because I don't want it to be ruined by any kind of mold going on. So that's kind of the first layer as far as the box is concerned. You can see up here I have waterproofing. I have a high-vis vest. I have a duck's back rain cover that goes on the clothing bag that I keep on the back of this, and we'll talk about that in another episode. Zion National Park is probably Utah's #1 attraction, and that's both good and bad. It's great for the tourist industry, but it also kind of congests things through the park, and so I wouldn't recommend really going through there during peak season. It's going to take you a long time to go just a few miles to make that shortcut from Highway 89 maybe over to I-15 if you're making that jump. That being said, though, in the off season, it used to be open all the way into the canyon. So you would, from the west entrance, you would ride that in and take a left and head up the main canyon road that takes you all the way into the Temple of Sinawava, which is where then you can mount a trail to go through and hike to hike the Narrows Trail, the Narrows Canyon Trail at that point. If that is closed to traffic, it's worth the bus ride, certainly, to go through and hop on and hike the trails. There's some amazing trails up there from Angel's Landing to the canyon overlook. You would need a backcountry permit if you were going to go through and camp overnight on some of the longer trails up on the west rim of the canyon. If you decide not to ride down there or take the bus, you can certainly stay on the main road that goes through Zion Highway 9. And that will take you up a series of switchbacks and then through the Zion Tunnel, and then eventually out past Checkerboard Mesa, and then out towards the east entrance of the canyon. And there are some great photo opportunities through there. It's all paved. It was recently redone here about 4 years ago. On the other side of the park, you come out at Mount Carmel Junction at Highway 89, and that takes you on to other great places to ride within southern Utah. Now, all these are paved. These aren't off-road, and there are some off-road areas, some off-road opportunities around the area. And I may or may not disclose those because we just kind of want to keep them to ourselves, in a way. I will tell you, though, about camping. I don't necessarily camp in the canyon because of the population and the number of people. I like to be out and away from as many folks as I can get. Not that I don't like people. I just don't like to camp near them. So I will let you in on one little secret. Just outside the town of Virgin, there's some dispersed camping. There's a road that goes through there. It's a sheep herder's road. The sheep is in the name of the road. I'll put it right here once I go through and do the edit of this, the name of the road. But there's some great vistas to take a look at and enjoy while you're sitting in camp and relaxing, watching the sun go down. One of my favorites looks at the whole west wall of the geological structure that make up Zion Canyon. And then as I turn south, there's the Virgin Bluffs along the south side there, where the Red Bull Rampage is held, one of the world's most foremost and crazy mountain biking races or mountain biking competitions out there as well. So, there's a half a dozen, if not a dozen, different places to camp out and about that area. I spent many a night out there when I was making the commute down to St. George to teach at the university, and then to come back here up to Bountiful where I live. So that's it for this episode. I'm going to go a little bit deeper into the box here on the next episode, and let's talk about Schaefer Canyon Trail on the next episode of Utah ADV. Thanks for joining me. If you get a chance, would you mind subscribing? I know I kind of blew that off in the pilot episode, but I could use as many subscribers and likes as I can. I'm trying to get this up to 1,000, so maybe we can kind of monetize things here a little bit as well. All right? Okay, enough. Thanks for watching.